Let's start with the tropics because I think first and foremost, that's kind of on everyone's mind because August rolled in and then all of a sudden it was like, hello, Atlantic hurricane season was warming up and getting ready to go. Dexter's on his way out to sea. We've got another area of possible development off the East Coast. And then we've got a bigger blob out there in the Atlantic Ocean. So let's go over to Frank Strait screen share. And Frank, what are we looking at on this Wednesday night?
Well, what we're looking at here is a wide-angle view of the Atlantic Basin. Well, I've got the Gulf cut off a little bit here and a bit of the Caribbean too, because it just doesn't quite fit on my screen because I need a bigger monitor. We were talking about that off the air. But anyway,
adding to the wish list. All right.
Yeah. Right. Adding to the wish list. I need a nice QHD monitor. They're not terribly expensive anymore. Anyhow, features of interest, primarily Dexter, which is this thing up here, kind of on the edge of the screen. Let's scoot that down. You can see it a little better. That's Tropical Storm Dexter, which will not be a tropical storm much longer. It looks like it's already in the process of turning into an extratropical storm. That means it's like one of these mid-latitude type storms. Where did my satellite view go? Let's see what else can malfunction today while we're at it.
Sam, I should tell you that during last week's live show, the streaming software just got up and left for like 5 minutes.
Said bye. Yeah.
It just said bye. Yeah. So it might do it again.
Tell you what, let's
done that.
Let's go find another view. There we go.
Hey,
that's another view of it. Okay, that's Dexter up here, east of Long Island, and
I'll take it.
It's again still a tropical storm, but not for much longer. By this time tomorrow, it ought to be a no longer a tropical system, an ocean storm. It'll be a pretty intense one, and then it's going to France or something. So it's about to be out of. Well, it's already out of our hair. It's about to be out of everyone's hair, unless you live in Europe. Scrolling further south and scooting this thing on a little further east, there are, well, actually, there's two areas of concern that the Hurricane Center has listed on their map, which, where did I put that? Looks like that. There we go. The little area of low pressure here that's right off the southeast coast that is going to be drifting northeastward and has a small chance to develop. The odds of that appear to be going down. And then there's this code orange area, 30% chance short term and 60% chance over the next 7 days that this thing becomes a tropical cyclone. Going back to the satellite view, we have some disorganized thunderstorm activity with our little code yellow area off the Carolina coast. And again, this is something to watch. Maybe it becomes a tropical storm or something out here, but it looks like it's not going to be a big problem for us. It more likely heads northeastward and is only a producer of rough surf and seas and maybe some heavier rainfall along the coast, especially in North Carolina, like out in Sam's territory out there. But this is probably not going to be a big deal for us. Also, this 60% area, this is the area we're concerned about here, looking at on the satellite view. Earlier today, viewing it on visible satellite pictures, you can see there's a pretty noteworthy turning motion with this already. So it looks like it's starting to gain some momentum and try to get better organized. So there is a good chance this becomes a tropical cyclone. This kind of thing won in the Atlantic, to use Susian terms, right off along the West African coastlines, thing 2, which could be a concern in the very long range, a week or more out, because it looks like that's going to try to develop once it gets out over the middle of the tropical Atlantic too. But again, it looks like this thing, and this is kind of what the Hurricane Center is forecasting for it to take a northwestward track and probably end up somewhere over or east of Bermuda and not be a serious concern for us. So that's thing 1. Thing 2 could be a little bit more of a concern, though. Because let me back this up here. Look at the models here. This is the European model, everybody's favorite, the Euro model. As I go forward in time with that, you can see thing 1 taking shape, trying to anyway, as it moves northwestward, but kind of struggling against some dry air that's over that part of the Atlantic right now, and eventually just getting pulled north. And maybe it eventually develops, maybe it doesn't. It's hard to say for sure. Meanwhile, thing 2 that's over West Africa now drifts westward, and the European model has that developing over the middle of the tropical Atlantic there, along about the 14th. And then as we go through the 15th and 16th, today's European model recurves this storm early. There comes another thing off of Africa in the very long range at about 2 weeks out. But the European model, at least from this morning's 12Z run, had it wandering around somewhere southeast of Bermuda. GFS model looks a little bit different. Again, thing one comes out, it shows it more likely to develop and heads toward Bermuda and then heads northwest from there and eventually toward Europe. Thing two develops over the tropical Atlantic. GFS is probably pulling the trigger on development too fast here, but shows it taking a similar track and then also recurving early. Now, that's what the models are saying today. Yesterday, let's back up to this morning's 0Z run actually instead. It's doing something similar with thing one, but a little further west. Thing two, it has it further south and going toward the Yucatan Peninsula instead. So it's a very wide range in solutions there. It just goes to show why we can't put a whole lot of stock in the computer models beyond 7 to 10 days because they're going to bounce around a lot.
Yeah.
We can get some useful information from them, and that both models are showing that there's the potential for a big storm to be out there. And looking at the ensembles, let's look at the at Weather Models Spaghetti-O plots here. These are interesting, showing the it's an innovative product. Anyway, they show thing one developing somewhere near the islands or maybe out southeast of Bermuda, but struggling a little bit. This is the Europeans ensemble, the EPS. Thing two, however, you can see that some of the ensemble members developing it out here east of the islands. That's the evening of the 14th our time.
Frank, multiple circles, but the ensembles mean like this guy thinks it's going to be over here, that guy thinks it's going to be over here. It's one storm.
Right, yeah, to explain what an ensemble is, you're basically taking the same model, in this case the European model, but changing the input slightly for each ensemble member. In the case of the EPS, you're doing that. You take one, what we call unperturbed member, essentially the Euro model, and then we make those little changes to 50 other versions of the Euro model and then run the model and see how sensitive it is to those changes and see how the model behaves slightly differently. And so that's why what you're seeing here is a plot of where each individual ensemble member shows the low pressure area will be and how intense it will be. Lower pressures, you end up with the brighter colors there, and that would be a more intense storm. So anyway, we're at 10 days out here, and then going out to 12 and 13 days out. Again, this from this morning's 12Z run. Some of them take the storm ending up going into the Gulf of Mexico here, some to the East Coast, some recurving before they get to the East Coast. So this goes to show there's a lot of spread in these ensembles right now. We get useful information out of them, and that they all seem to agree there's going to be a big storm somewhere out there, and that there's some chance that it could affect the East Coast, maybe the Carolinas, maybe coming up the coast and going to New York or southern New England or something, or maybe going into the Gulf of Mexico. So there is a lot of uncertainty at this point, as you would expect for 2 weeks out. But the bottom line is there is some concern for a big storm, and there is some chance that it would be somewhere close to the East Coast. But to try and pinpoint anything at this point, that's beyond what we can do. And one of the reasons, and this is one of the reasons why you have to be wary of people on social media posting the model output showing a hurricane hitting Charleston or something 2 weeks from now, is because even if you take the modeling we have seriously, and they're indicating that yes, that's a possibility, but like a 3% chance, and that's essentially what climatology says. There's a 3% chance of a major hurricane hitting South Carolina or North Carolina or Florida. And well, the odds would be better for Florida, but still, you get the point. There's no real point in buying into any doom and gloom scenario you might see touted on social media at this range.
Be wary of what you see on social media. Unless this is the first time that you're seeing Frank on social media, you can trust him. He's a trained meteorologist.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. And I'll, if I post something like that on social media, which I might, I'll tell you, here's what today's model said. Yesterday it said something totally different, and tomorrow's model is going to say something totally different again. I'll put it in proper context for you.
Yeah. Jared, you've heard of vibe coding. It's like vibe forecasting.
Oh yeah, vibe forecasting is that's exactly how we don't want to do it. Please don't scare Sherry model words. Please don't share scary model runs of tropical cyclones hitting Charleston. It makes my job that much harder. It makes Frank's job that much harder. It just isn't, it isn't worth scaring people. There are people out there who are literally have serious storm anxiety. There are still people who remember Hugo like it was yesterday and never want to do
That's
that
me.
again.
I'm one of those who remember Hugo like it was yesterday,
Yeah,
even though I was 17 when it
yeah.
hit, and I'm
Frank,
53 now.
But
on this Wednesday night, the National Hurricane Center has a 60% chance of development over the course of the next 7 days. So, at what point do you think we could see our first forecast cone for this thing?
Good question, because there's issues with that system out there. Even though it's starting to get its act together now, a big slug of dry air that's loaded with Saharan dust has come off of Africa recently, and if this thing starts to develop in the next 24 to 36 hours, it's going to suck some of that dry air in and slow things down potentially considerably. So kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
Maybe in 48 hours we'll finally see a forecast cone, or maybe it ends up sucking in some of that dry air, and that slows the development down, and we don't see our first advisory issued until Saturday or Sunday.
We know that now that we're in August, we're coming up on the average increase of when we see tropical development each year. You can see, if you're watching with us right now, that after August and all the way through September and October, we're at that peak based on activity from 1944 through the year 2020. On X earlier from the Climate Prediction Center, talking about kind of the
Yeah.
broad strokes of possible development favorability over the main development region over the next week or two. So I guess these things would correlate with what you're talking about, right?
Right, that area over the Lesser Antilles and just east of there, that would be what I was calling Thing 2. And yes, Jay, I'm being Seussian on purpose because I have grandkids now that are 2 years old, and I'm very soon going to be reading Dr. Seuss books to them. So, yes, that was intentional. Anyway,
You got the thumbnail. You got the thumbnail, James. That's all set for you now.
right. So anyway,
There you go.
and that
Thing one and
thing
thing two.
farther to the east over Cabo Verde, that would be a Thing 3 perhaps that comes out in 4 or 5 days. Another tropical wave that's just developing over the African continent now, so to speak.
All right, everyone in our following know, and I know all of our panelists will do the same. If the tropics become a real concern,